and few others of that class. All those are classics, but not enough there to build up intellectual might. Okay, so he must have known people who had more books, or he had a library, or he had a public library, which I don't know if they even had those at Prince Edward's Island at this point. Remember too, this is not back at the beginning of the century, but a little more than a generation ago, for I was born in 1854. So in 1854, when he was born, America had more than 30,000 railroad miles, and would double that by the end of the decade. Canada wasn't that far behind, but where he was way out of it. And with the telegraph, no place in America was more than 2 hours away from news of any other place, except where this guy's at. They're probably a boat ride from any major news. My father had cleared away the land on which our house stood. He was a poor man, but no poorer than his neighbors. No amount of land and no amount of work could yield much more than the necessaries of life in that time and place. There were 8 children in our family, and there was work for all of us. Our parents were anxious to have their children acquire at least an elementary education, which is more than you can say for Abraham Lincoln's father, who couldn't care less if his son learned to read or write. He never learned it. He couldn't be bothered with it. He liked the lifestyle. His parents, they were poor, but they had quite a few books in their house. I'm changing my mind on what he said. I mean, yeah, those are all standard books, but all of those are classic books, and all of those are going to help spur his imagination. But again, he's going to need more than that in order to do the success that he had. But her parents, unlike Abraham Lincoln's father, were lusted for education, honored education, wanted their kids to be educated. That's probably where his love of learning came from. Mm-hmm. To have their children acquire at least an elementary education, and so summer and winter, we tramped the 1.5 miles that lay between our house and the district school, and the snow often fell the depths of 5 or 6 feet on the island. And sometimes, when it was at its worst, our father would drive us all to school in a big sleigh. But no weather was bad enough to keep us away. So, it could get really cold in Canada, as you know from Highway Through Hell. And they get a lot of snow. And he just said that they had 5-foot drifts. So, and they had to walk 1.5 miles. It sounds like one of those old geezer things. Oh, I had to walk uphill 5 miles to school both ways. It's like, okay, whatever. But this guy's for real. 3. But whatever may have been its deficiencies, the work of the school was thorough. The teacher was an old-fashioned drill master, and whatever he drove into our heads, he put there to stay. I went to this school until I was 13, and by that time I had learned to read and write and spell and figure with considerable accuracy. Figure with considerable accuracy is another old-fashioned way of saying math.
Okay.
Like Abraham Lincoln saying he could cipher up to the degree of 7. So the idea of the 3 R's didn't exist then, because they'd say stuff like that. And by the way, the 3 R's are never 3 R's.
What's the 3 R's?
Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Only one of those starts with an R.
Somebody dropped the A off.
Well,
They just say, the only way you get that work is to forget that writing has a W at the beginning and mispronounce arithmetic. Just arithmetic. My father got me a place in the nearest town, Summerside, a village of about 1,000 inhabitants. For my first year's work, I was to receive $30 at my board. Think of that, young men of today, $30 a year for working from 7 in the morning until 10 at night. But I was glad to get the place. It was a start in the world, and the little village was a city to my country eyes. So, yeah, it probably was. From the time I began working the store until today, I have always supported myself, and during all the years of my boyhood, I never received a penny that I did not earn myself. At the end of my first year, I went to a larger store in the same town, where I was to receive $60 a year. So he wasn't content to just stick with that $30, though, was he?
No.
He was smart enough to realize, yeah, that's nice, I got $30, but wouldn't it be nice to get more? And he's found a place that'll double it. And my board. So he doesn't have to pay for his board, which is housing and food. I kept this place for 2 years, and I gave it up against the wishes of my employer because I had made up my mind that I wanted to get a better education. I determined to go to college. I did not know how I was going to do this, except that it must be by my own efforts. I had saved about $80 from my storekeeping, and that was all the money I had in the world. Out of $150, the only cash he received at his first earnings during 3 years, young Schurman had saved $80. This he invested in the beginning of an education. This was done in italics. Somebody else wrote that down. When I told my employer of my plan, he tried to dissuade me from it. He pointed out the difficulties in the way of me going to college and offered to double my pay if I'd stay in the store. Whenever you people have a dream, everybody's always ready to tell you how hard it's going to be. Don't do it. It's going to be too hard. Oh, you're not going to succeed. Oh, you're going to end up in a worse place. So what if you do? You might fail. So what? He could always come and work at another store like this, you know? So why not go for your dreams? Don't let people scare you out of your dreams just because the road could be rocky and it's not guaranteed you're going to succeed. Nothing worthwhile is guaranteed. Period. Okay? That was the turning point in my life. On one side was the certainty of $120 a year and the prospect of promotion as fast as I deserved it. Remember what $120 meant in Prince Edward Island, and to a poor boy who had never possessed such a sum in his life. On their side was my hope of obtaining an education. I knew that involved hard work and self-denial, and there was the possibility of failure in the end, see? But my mind was made up. I would not turn back. I need not say that I do not regret that early decision. Although I think that I should have made a successful storekeeper. I mean, he could have been successful had he gone the other way. He could have ended up owning his own store and then building on that into like a general store like they had back in those days, like Sears and Roebuck's or Kresge's.
Another one of them.
There's a bunch, but he didn't choose to go that way. So I mean, there's always multiple ways to get success, but his success wasn't being rich. He wanted to be well educated, and that was indoctrinated into him at an early age by his parents, who saw the value of education that they didn't have, that they were poor, and they knew that to enrich his life, even if he doesn't become rich off it, it's better to have a rich life than to have millions of dollars and be an ignorant fool. Okay? With my $80 capital, I began to attend the village high school to get my preparation for college. I had only 1 year to do it in. My money would not last longer than that. I recited in Latin, Greek, and algebra, all on the same day, and for the next 40 weeks, I studied harder than I ever had before or have since. At the end of the year, I entered the competitive examination for a scholarship in Prince Wales College at Charlottetown on the island. I had small hope of winning it. My preparation had been so hasty and incomplete. When the results announced, I found that I not only won the scholarship from my county, but stood first at all the competitors on the island. So his hard work did pay off. He succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. He didn't think he was going to succeed then. He thought that he'd have to probably, that was his first step. He'd probably have to go back, work at a store, make up more money, and then try again. A scholarship I won amounted to only $60 a year. It seemed little enough, but I can say now, after nearly 30 years, that the winning of it was the greatest success I've ever had. I had had other awards, which to most persons would seem immeasurably greater. But with this difference, that first success was essential. Without it, I could not have gone on. The others I could not have done without. I could have done without, if it had been necessary. So without this first win, the rest of his career could not have happened. So that's why it may not have been much money, but it was a chance to go to Nathad. Schurman attended Prince of Wales College. He lived on a scholarship of what he could earn by keeping books for one of the town storekeepers, spending less than $100 during the entire college year. Afterwards, he taught a country school for a year, and then went on to Acadia College in Nova Scotia to complete his college course. One of Mr. Schurman's fellow students in Acadia says that he was remarkable chiefly for taking every prize in which he was eligible. In his senior year, he learned the scholarship at the University of London to be competed for the students of Canadian colleges. The scholarship paid $500 a year for 3 years. The young students of Acadia was ambitious to continue studies in England. So I was wrong. I thought he was talking about in London, Ontario. They're talking about London, England. and saw this offer as opportunity. He tried the examination and won the prize. Don't they have something similar to that in Jamaica?
Which one?
To go to a university in England, you win you win a competition. So this is probably the same
A
thing.
scholarship.
During 3 years at the University of London, Mr. Schurman became deeply interested in studying philosophy and decided that he had found in it his life work. He was eager to go to Germany and study under the great leaders of philosophic thought. A way was opened for him through the offer of the Hibbard Society in London, the prize being a traveling fellowship with $2,000 a year. The honor men of the great English universities like Oxford and Cambridge were among the competitors, but the poor country boy from Prince Edward Island was again successful, greatly in surprise of the others, because he worked harder than the others. He was hungrier for it, as that one guy. Mr. Schurman, then a doctor of philosophy, returned to Acadia College to become a teacher there. Soon afterwards, he was called to Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. In 1886, when a chair of philosophy was established at Cornell, President White, who once met the brilliant young Canadian, called him to that position. 2 years later, Schurman became dean of the Sage School of Philosophy at Cornell. So 2 years after going there, when they first started that College of Philosophy, he became the head of the school. Okay, just like in Rocky III, to be a successful boxer, it's just like being a successful academic. When you're moving up in the ranks and you're hungry. You want the success. But after you get success, you stop being hungry and you end up being taken down by people who are hungry. This guy stayed hungry, no matter what, no matter his success. He could have said, "Man, I got a position I like at a nice university. I'm going to stay here." But no. Then he was able to network and get himself a position at a very prestigious university, and then he worked at it until he became the head of that department in the university. And chair became vacant. He was placed at the head of the great university. At that time, he was only 38 years of age. I guarantee you that he might be either the youngest or one of the youngest presidents in that university's history. You don't get that position that young, unless you're very brilliant and able to market yourself very well. President Schurman is a man of great intellectual power and an inspiring presence. Though one of the youngest college presidents in the country, he is one of the most successful, and under his leadership, Cornell has been very prosperous. He is deeply interested in all the affairs of young men, and especially those who, as he did, must make their own way in the world. He said the other day, "Though I am no longer engaged directly in teaching, I should think my work a failure if I did not feel that my influence on the young men with whom I come in contact is as direct and helpful as that of a teacher could be." So, I'm reading to the kids the Boyhood experience of President Schurman of Cornell University. Okay, thank you.